You are my fire, you are desire, believe when I say I want it that way. We are two worlds apart. Might reach for your heart when you say I want it that way. Tell me why ain't nothing but a heartache. What's up, brother?
How you doing, Darius?
Oh man, I'm doing a hell of a lot better now that I sang some Backstreet Boys.
Of course, man after my heart.
Oh man, I was reading your bio and I'm like, oh, he did something for the Backstreet Boys. I'm all over that. You did some design work for him.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience designing their very first website ever as a band.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about it. What's that?
One of our employees just randomly ran into them. It was amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, hey guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and boy, do we have a special guest for you today. My man, Jay Wilkinson. Welcome to the show, my man.
It's so great to be here, Darius. Thanks.
Oh, so good to have you here. Guys, as you know, at the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People who are living their passions and those who are creating greatness in the world. My brother here, Jay, is both living his passions and creating greatness, and we're going to be diving into that in just one moment. But before we go there, I want you to do two things. Hit that like button. When we bust out some knowledge, dropping some knowledge bombs on you, hit that like button, hit that love button, hit that hug button, whatever you're going to hit it. And on top of that, ask us questions. We're live. Like, you don't get moments like this in your life too often, but we are live, so we will be answering questions. Third, last but not least, start a watch party. We're on Facebook. Start a watch party. Share this with your friends. They're going to want to know all the stuff that Jay and I are going to be talking about over the next 35 to 40 minutes. With that said, I want to give a little bit of background, Jay, on how we know one another. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jay and I, we met. We're in this program, Gathering of Titans. As you guys who watch the show regularly know, a lot of GOT people pop on here. It's a great network. So it's just this network of amazing people that I've gotten the honor of getting to know over the years. And Jay's one of those amazing people. And he spoke, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, about this thing that he's doing called the Do More Good movement. And I was like, hells yeah. I mean, I'm a conscious capitalist. So for me, like anyone that's like putting their money where their mouth is and trying to create greatness in the world and do more good, I'm like, sign me up. I'm into it. We've never really interacted about it, but it was just one of those things where it like stuck in my head. And so I was like, man, I got to bring Jay on the show and talk about that amongst all the other things you're doing. But yeah, man, like, you mind if I give your formal background?
Oh, of course. It'd be fine.
Cool. So guys, Jay's a CEO, entrepreneur, speaker, and author. He's writing another book right now. We'll talk about that a little bit. But he wrote a book by the name of Captivate and Engage. As I mentioned, he does the Do More Good movement. They're doing tons of cool things. But you know, Jay's just one of those entrepreneurs that's out there getting after it. He's a CEO of Fire Spring, and they have thousands of clients all over the world. And it became Nebraska's first certified B Corp in 2014. Was named by Inc. magazine in 2016. Is one of America's 50 best places to work. So much there, so much more beyond that. But man, welcome to the show, my brother. I'm so glad to have you.
It is great to see your smiling, energetic face, as always.
Oh man, I'm just trying to do me.
No one better to do it.
Exactly. Well, look, you know, what I'd like to do is I always like to get people's origin stories. A big part of this, and for those of you, is, you know, like we're in the same program, but we haven't spent a ton of time, you know, getting to know each other. So I know a bit about your origin story, but do you mind kind of giving me and the guests of the show, or excuse me, the audience of the show, some of your, like, how did you get started? How did you become an entrepreneur? Like, give us the origin story, just a 5-minute version.
Yeah, I was born into an entrepreneurial family, like a lot of entrepreneurs are. Mm-hmm. My family settled in the Central Plains of Nebraska back before Buffalo Bill even showed up in these here parts.
Wow.
And in the mid 1800s, and it's fascinating to me how people that settled in this part of the country, how they got there. You know, most of us are here because our ancestors were traveling across in a covered wagon, and the damn thing broke down, and said, "Well, I guess this is where we're going to live."
Good enough.
And the hardiness, the grit of those early settlers, it's resonant. It's never lost on me that I come from a hardy, gritty clan, and And I think that is bred into the farming and ranching mentality that really created this part of our country. And I know so many people from the Sandhills of Nebraska, where I grew up, who are entrepreneurial. Again, it's that work ethic and that resolve to do something just because most people think that it can't be done.
Right.
And it's deep inside of me from my family roots.
So, how far are the Sand Hills from Omaha?
So it's about a 4.5 hour drive to get to the heart of the Sandhills of Nebraska from Omaha. It's about halfway across the state between Omaha and Denver.
Okay, wait. So I'm geographically challenged right now. So Denver is in the same vicinity. How close is Colorado to Nebraska? Are they like neighbors?
Where I grew up in the Sandhills area of Nebraska, it was actually closer to Denver, Colorado than it was to Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow, news to Darius. I'm a California guy, so I'm like Nebraska and Colorado. This is the first time in my whole life Colorado and Nebraska have been used in the same sentence. So for me,
that's awesome. I'm glad to give you that gift.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm guessing it's eastern Colorado, right? So that's the is that correct? The northeastern Colorado and the southwestern border of Nebraska are close to each other.
Yeah. Nebraska has kind of a panhandle on the top, and in the crook of the angle of the panhandle, that's where Denver is from central Nebraska. So I grew up in the central Nebraska. If you drew a plus sign across the United States, right there at the crosshairs is about where I grew up.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So your family was one of the early settlers of Nebraska, what I just heard.
Yeah.
Wow. And so where by way of which country?
Well, I've done some pretty deep ancestry in the last couple of years, and I've learned a lot more than I ever thought. I am actually the 27th great grandchild of a king in Scotland, King William the Lionheart.
No way.
Yeah. And also on the other side of my grandmother's side, I am the 43rd, I think, great grandchild of Charlemagne, King, the Emperor of Rome. So somehow those two channels met up in the Central Plains of Nebraska and got married, and then I was the creation of that. It's kind of cool.
Well, listen, royalty begets royalty. My last name stands for descendant of the royal king in Farsi.
Oh, really?
So,
isn't there a Darius the Great too? I remember that.
Yeah, my family really doubled down on me. My last name literally stands. Shah means king, Zadeh means descendant of, and Mir means royal. So and the funny thing, this is a total entrepreneur story. My grandfather, my father's father was the youngest of five, and he was born in 1939. His dad was born in 1896, right? So this is my grandfather, right?
Wow.
It was like 120 years ago is when he was born. And I'm not that old. I'm like 42 years old. So like that kind of shows you, right? He married my grandmother and took her last name because it was way more meaningful than his, because he's a hardcore entrepreneur, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So my first name is Darius, which is based on Darius the Great. So yeah, they doubled down on the kingness. Yeah, man, two royal-blooded individuals just hanging out on a podcast.
Who would have thought? Yeah, why not?
Forget about Nebraska. Let's just do it virtually, man. That's so cool. So you come from the royal lineage, as do I. My wife my wife is English. So if you go to like ancestry.com and you start digging in, if you're from Iran, or like my grandfather, my mom's side is from like the hills of Italy, like they're like the peasants. Like there's nothing. It stops pretty quick there. But my wife, her last name is Walcott, and her grandfather, or her father's family's all English. And I went crazy. I went back before Christ with her family. And the reason I was able to do that was that she was she's like something like yours. I don't remember, it was 22nd or 44th great granddaughter of William of Orange or something, one of the kings of England. So when you got that royal lineage, it's really cool when you start digging into that.
Yes, it is.
That's awesome. So that's so cool, man. Obviously, I love people like from the Midwest. A lot of my best friends, that Great Plain culture, that hardcore, that grittiness, you had it in your blood. So were you like just an unemployable type of person where you're like, yeah, I'm starting my own business when you were young?
Yeah, I am 100% unemployable. I've done nothing but try, attempt, repeat, fail, try again. in fact, I know I had started 8 different companies by the time I graduated from college. Before I started the one that ultimately led to a path that led me to where I am today. That was quite successful, but it took a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I am of the same mentality. I was very entrepreneurial, and I grew up with an entrepreneurial family. And I think when you grow up seeing that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It makes you a bit unemployable, where you're just you're like, boss, show up on time. Like, I'll do that because it's the right thing to do, but I don't want to have to do that. I want to kind of go and grind and create my own thing. Walk us through, like, what was your mentality about that?
Yeah, I would say early on there was that allure of being your own boss, so to speak, and then there was the reality that hit that. Well, okay, what that really means is that you are serving everyone that is in your employ. You're serving your clients. You have dozens of bosses when you become a business owner.
Oh, yeah.
And the reality was different than the dream. There's no question. But once you adjust to that, and you realize that you can do some pretty amazing things if you just learn how to build teams of people that would run through brick walls for each other and build environments and culture that breeds the kind of loyalty and commitment to one another. It's pretty magical. It's an awesome path.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that, and this will kind of segue into how you became a B Corp, and I'd love to talk about that. I think that you're landing on something that's really interesting, which is this idea of elevating folks to be a part of something greater than themselves. And it's this idea of stakeholder value and how do you get people aligned. And for me, like, I wrote a book about this called The Core Value Equation, which is essentially how do you take this idea of values, which essentially are the fundamental beliefs of a person or organization, and then actually operationalize them to do exactly what you're talking about. Get a group of people together, motivate them, invest in them, elevate them, and then how do you do that to your point later, do more good in the world, right?
Yes.
Walk us through that. I'd love to hear. I mean, I got introduced. I have a friend who's a B Corp in Oakland, California. He runs a snack food company called Dang. But yeah, how did that journey go from the lonely journey of serving to then leading and having a business that was then creating greatness around you, having a team that was running through those brick walls, turning into a B Corp? And in fact, if you wouldn't mind, maybe educate our audience on what a B Corp is.
Yeah, we'll do so. Yeah, so I remember it really, really clearly, actually. It was somewhere in around 2013, and I'd been running Firespring for many years. We were successful and growing and doing great things, but there was still something missing, and I didn't really know what it was. And in a parallel, in my personal life, my dad is my hero and my mentor and the person that I lean on the most for all things in life. And I remember always thinking that someday I'm going to do something for my dad that is deep and meaningful. Someday I'm going to have enough money. I'm going to save up enough money, and I'm going to build a park and name it after him, or a hospital wing, or whatever, these things that we do. And I remember going back to Thanksgiving that year and talking to my dad, and I was kind of digging in, trying to ask him these questions about what his legacy, what he wanted his legacy to be, what he wanted to be remembered for. And I remember him just kind of laughing at me, saying, "Why are you asking me these questions?" He said, all I care about is that I have great kids and great grandkids who are doing great things with their lives, who are leading these amazing lives and helping other people. And I realized that, I'd been all that time thinking about, I'm going to save and build something up so I can do something meaningful, like waiting till the end of my life is what I'd realized. And I just had this realization that what the hell am I waiting for? Why am I waiting to amass all this ability and resources? And I came back and I sat down in our next leadership team meeting, and they had that look in their eyes, like the deer in the headlights, like, oh shit, Jay just went to a conference. It was that look that I think most entrepreneurs can recognize. And I laid out to them that I've been doing this research. I want us to become a certified B corporation. And that's what we did. And a certified B corporation is simply a company that is vetted by a third-party standard. There's an organization, it's a nonprofit in Philadelphia called B Labs, co-founded by Jay Cohen Gilbert, one of my current mentors, an amazing human. And they created this system that you can go to use their tools, and you can plug in all of your information as a company and see where you fall on their spectrum. It's an assessment tool to get an idea as to how you're doing. And if you score high enough, then you're eligible to apply for and become a certified B Corp. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work. But the difference between that and other types of systems and programs like that is that you have to meet a third-party standard, and you're audited. They come out every 3 years, and they make sure that you're walking the talk. That you're not saying you're a green company and then spewing sewage out the back.
Right.
So they vet it and make sure that the companies that are certified B Corps meet their criterion, rather than them just saying, we're a meaningful company. They actually vet it and make sure that you are.
Can you give us a couple of examples of like some of the standards that are like maybe would be interesting for the audience?
Yeah. So some of the things that we changed, we changed how we use electricity. For example, we started to pay attention to how we're consuming energy, and the biggest changes for us was really around equity and inclusion, and we changed our board of directors changed to make sure that we had minority and female representation. After really pursuing the B Corp path, now today more than half of our managers in our organization across the company are female, and so we're really mindful of gender and equity inclusion in every way that we can think about, because we see best practices all the time. So we have lots of conversations with other certified B Corps. We share best practices, and we're always trying to evolve. We're always trying to find a better way. That's our mantra, is to find a better way and to improve from one day to the next. We've got to become better.
Yeah, it's so great. And so, man, I think that's so interesting. And right now, are there hot topics in the B Corp community or that people are really pushing, or is it just kind of this overall process and ethos people go through to transform themselves and maintain that status?
Yeah, one thing that's interesting about the B Corp community is it's a worldwide community. And so the issues that affect businesses in Asia and Europe and all around the world are oftentimes very different than the way they impact companies in the United States or even in North America in general. There are different issues, as it relates to poverty and other things that businesses and companies need to be aware of. So one thing that it's done for me is it's made me really be mindful to be a citizen, a business leader of the world, and not just focused, in my. I consider Nebraska to be the middle of everywhere. And I used to really hunker down and just have so much pride in the people that work with us here in Nebraska. But now I'm way more mindful of that world view, that world mentality. So that's the thing, probably more than anything that it's done.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I love that. Like I did. Did you do Stagen? Are you a Stagen guy?
Yeah, I am a Stagen guy.
Yeah, we're Stagen alum, my friend. What class are you?
Well, I'm in the class right now, actually.
Oh, when's your commencement?
Not for another, I think it's in 2 weeks.
So wait, are you Nightingale?
No, it's Glenn.
Oh, okay, cool, very cool. I'm Hamilton. I'm a Hamilton guy. So yeah, that's cool. Rand was actually on the show. I love the Stagen community. I think that a lot of the things you're talking about resonate with me from the perspective of conscious capitalism and Stagen ideology. So that's so cool, and it's amazing to have gotten that gift. How long ago did you become a B Corp? When was that?
2014.
Okay, wow. So it's been a few years, and I love how coming from Nebraska, where that's no San Francisco, right? Where you get this like green mindset. I'm going to talk Stagen talk right now, right? It's more of a blue mindset, right? That's probably more unusual, I would guess. Or is there a thriving B Corp community in Nebraska?
Oh, there is now, and that's actually what the Do More Good movement is all about, and how I went down that path, because there just hasn't been a lot of awareness In the general business community, outside of pockets like San Francisco is clearly an area where it leads the way in purpose-driven businesses, no question. But outside of San Francisco, there just really aren't or haven't been historically big pockets of companies that understand that in order to survive, not just like thrive, but in order to survive the next decade, we have to stop thinking about business the way it's always been.
Right.
We can't only believe that business is, to your point earlier, the shareholder model where we're taking the profits of the business, shoving it in the pockets of the owners and saying, we're good here, everybody get back to work. There has to be a stakeholder mentality in business, or the millennials and the Gen Zs now that are coming into the workforce, they're not going to want to work for those companies. No. And people won't buy their products and services. So companies have to understand that if they don't change the way that they think about business, they're not going to survive another decade. I think it's the biggest shift in business since the computer age and the industrial age before that. I think we're seeing a major shift towards this stakeholder capitalism model.
Yeah, I love that. And what I've been out there saying, and this was I kind of planted my flag in the sand when I put my book out. And I said, my book's about how do you build a core value driven organization? How do you use it? And I'm trying to speak the language of the shareholder capitalists, because I came from a banking environment where, like, I was talking to Rand Stagen about this, and he's like, "Oh, you're in financial services. Those guys are like the last guy to the party, right? Like they're like, do I have to?" Right? Because moving money is this thing where you're like intangible. It's an intangible, and it's a bunch of humans moving this fiat currency around, right? So you're moving invisible things around that don't attach to anything, and you get paid a lot of money to do it, and it creates this transactional mindset around behavior, and so having come from that world, being a purpose-driven CEO, I was like, I don't like this. Like, this doesn't, like, I know what inspires people, and it's not that.
Yeah.
That human beings are not wired to want that. They're wired for survival, and they're wired to want to be successful, and they're wired, as Maslow says, for self-actualization.
Yeah.
Right. So I just, that made sense to me. And so when I started going out with the book, I said, I believe, and just to support what you just said, and I'd love to maybe hear your thoughts on this. I'm sure you'll agree because of what you just said, but I'd love to seriously hear what you think about this bold statement I'm going to say, which is that mission, vision, and value-based organization are going to smoke every single non-mission and vision value-based organization between now and 2030. And my reason for this, just because, again, I'm looking at this from a hardcore banker standpoint, is really simple. Technology, because of Moore's law, speeds up everything. It's a decompression of value, right? It's a decelerator of value, right? It makes things cheaper. It doesn't inflate, it deflates. And if you look at a deflationary environment, which technology typically does, that will create two things: a leveling of differentiating value props from technology and price compression. Things will it's like the margins will be cheaper, overall, right? So I can't compete simply based off of the bells and widgets being a little bit, or the bells and whistles being a little bit, snazzier, because it's all about the same, and the price will be all about the same. So what's the differentiating value prop? And my take on that, simple: humans. If I get the best people who are inspired the most, we win, you lose. So
yeah. And there are way too many old school philosophies at work, CEOs and business leaders who think that the stakeholder business model movement is all about profit, about trying to reduce their profits, and it's not. No. There is so much evidence. Raj Sisodia, in his book Firms of Endearment, talks about it incessantly. He's one of the co-founders of Conscious Capitalism.
Right.
That companies that operate on their why and their purpose outperform, and not just revenue, but outperform profit 10 times over their counterparts that are focused just in the old shareholder model. So there are a lot of old school business people who think it's all frou-frou stuff that and they really believe it's all about profit. And what they're not realizing is they're leaving profit on the table because they're not willing to change. Yeah,
and what I say, I agree with you wholeheartedly, is that marketing folks and HR people have basically hijacked a lot of these words. Mm-hmm. And so when my HR person, my chief people officer, comes to me and says, we need to have a more engaged workforce, let's do pizza parties and ball games, and my marketing folks says, we need to architect our brand so that people like us more, we need to talk about happiness and hugs and kisses, the CEO and the CFO looks at each other and they're like, what the fuck did that guy talk about? Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, as they should, right? And my position is way different, which is, all right, here's real simple. Go get a mirror, go stand in it, look at it and say, what motivates you? And at a certain point, it's not just money. It's around being a part of something greater than yourself. The greatest teams and the greatest empires in the world are built on this.
Absolutely.
So it's for me, it's pretty simple. So let's talk about the Do More Good movement. Like, I want to hear about, where did that come out of? What are you doing with it? The whole shebang. Let's hear that.
Yeah. So the origin of this for me really happened. I mentioned we became a certified B Corp in 2014. In 2016, we were chosen by Inc. magazine in their inaugural list of the 50 best workplaces in America, which was fantastic. I take that with a lot of humility. I know that we aren't one of the best 50 companies to work for in America. We're 200 people here in the plains of Nebraska doing marketing and promotion and really great work. And we're a great company. But I started to really think about what that meant to be a company that was highly engaging to their workforce, and company culture became a big part of what I focused on. And I actually decided, because I was at a conference speaking somewhere about culture, about sharing how we became someone worthy of being on that list. And somebody came up to one of the standing mics in one of the rows and said, and the question was, what's the future of culture going to look like? Like in 10 years, what is a company culture going to look like in order for you to be successful? And of course, I don't have a crystal ball any more than the next guy. I didn't know the answer. I had some thoughts about it, but I thought that was a really interesting question. So I brought my wife in on this, and we started a process where we interviewed more than 500 certified B Corps, conscious capitalists, 1% for the planet, other companies that exist as a purpose-driven business. And we started asking that question. But about 75% of the way through those interviews, and I saw all these themes reoccurring, and this is what my book was going to be about how to elevate and what the future of culture is. I realized that it's not culture, that's one piece of the pie. I kept hearing words from these companies like love as it applies to business. Words like rising tide, like we want to be the kind of company that elevates all of our competitors because the rising tide lifts all boats. And we talk about service and servant leadership. I kept hearing all of these things that were it was part of company culture, but that was only part of the solution. And so I got together with a long-term friend of mine, this young man that I had met at a leadership workshop that I've been conducting for 30 years. And he was in my group of students, and his name is Graham Pansing Brooks. And I was explaining to Graham that we need to do something to help educate and empower and inspire businesses to understand that there's a better way, that this whole stakeholder capitalism thing is real, and it can make meaningful change in not just their business, but in the communities they serve and in the lives of the people that work for those companies. And he got excited. He came in, joined me, and we started the Do More Good movement. And our first conference was in May of 2019. And we brought together leaders from all those major groups. So 1% for the Planet, actually Rand Stagen was there representing conscious capitalism. He was on their founding board. Nice. Jay Cohen Gilbert, the founder of Certified B Corporations or B Labs. And then we also had Preeta Bansal. She was President Obama's chief legal counsel, and she's the one that was instrumental in creating benefit corporation legislation, which has now been passed in 38 states in America, so that businesses can register their business to become a benefit corporation in their state and make this proclamation that we are here to stand for something more than just shareholder capitalism. And it was the first time ever that representatives from all of these different major leading entities in purpose and businesses had ever been on the same stage. And it was magical what came out of it. And our next conference is actually coming up here. We have it on May 12th. It's going to be a virtual conference. And we are bringing together many of those same people and putting together just a one-day event online that will be very meaningful in helping businesses and business leaders understand how to take that next step on their path to purpose, because so many don't really know what to do about it. They know it's important, or they might think that it is, but they don't really know what those next steps are. And they don't know if they should align with conscious capitalism or with B Corps or 1% for the planet. We actually have identified 52 different frameworks that exist around purpose in business. And we're trying to find ways to educate business leaders on which path is best for them.
Wow.
And that's what we're focused on. It's been so much fun, and we're having a great time. And it's been so meaningful. We're changing the lives of the people that work in these companies that are now walking this path a little differently.
That's amazing. And if, by the way, you're looking for a guy that wrote a book about core values, I happen to know one.
Oh, I've heard about this guy. Yeah.
The word on the street is he's killer on the mic when it comes to talking about core values. So,
Fantastic.
Let's hear about the new book. I know you wrote the book Captivate and Engage.
Yeah.
Let's hear about the new book that's in the works.
Well, the new book is a summary of the Do More Good movement. It's all about, again, all of these fellow travelers, as we like to call them, these 50 some different frameworks that are out in the world, and laying out a practical step-by-step process. Choose your own adventure. And dedicate and commit to it, and helping businesses understand what that process is. So I'm trying to bring as much clarity as I can based on all of these interviews we've done and all of the people we've talked to and all these other companies that have gone down this path, to kind of help people understand what mistakes they made and what roadblocks and obstacles they encountered, so we can help them really have a more smooth ascension to understand how to infuse purpose and meaning into the way that they operate their business.
So what do you think when you look out right now? It's 2021. We've just gone through this whole COVID thing. There's a lot of uncertainty. When you look at Firespring and you look at the Do More Good, and you look at like the things that you're working on, what are the next? What are you excited about? What are the next things? Like what's the future hold for Jay right now?
I think there's so much in simplifying. Like in my life, I'll share one thing that I learned over COVID. I've actually had many conversations with my wife around this. It's around the concept of intention versus impact. I've had so much time for reflection and just internal dialogue. And my wife and I have been in the same house, working from home most of the time, which can create a lot of conflict, or it can create a lot of connection. It really depends on how you approach it and how you treat it. And, I've learned that, most of us, we measure ourselves based on our own intention because we know what's going on in our own head and our own heart. But we measure others based on impact, how they affected us, because we don't know what's going on in their heads or their heart. And it's not a fair assessment of how we evaluate and treat and connect with other people. So something that I've been working on incessantly, and it's part of my I think my farm and ranch male dynamic growing up, where I did as well, that my natural instinct is to defend. So if someone says, like let's say we have a dog at home who's great at catching Frisbees. Her name is Lottie. And if I were to throw the Frisbee and be 4 feet away from my wife and whack her on the side of the face with it, and she turns around and says, "Hey, you just hit me with a Frisbee." And I say, "Well, I didn't mean to." Well, okay, I may not have meant to, but I did, right? That was the result of my action was to cause her harm. And what I've learned is that we have to tend to the impact first and deal with the fact that we've made this impact, and then later come back and maybe deal with the intent, and if it's necessary. But I've applied this to every aspect in the way that I interact with the people in our company, our clients, everyone out in the world. It's intent versus impact. And it's something that I think that these kind of insights, as we can maybe zen out a little bit and go deeper on the inside and to do the inside work that we need to do, the better our business, our companies, and our leadership styles are going to be as we move forward. And so that's an example of something that I've really been focused on just during the pandemic.
I love it. When Rand was on the show, he brought up something to that degree where we were talking about the golden rule, his golden rule versus platinum rule. Did he talk to you guys about that?
Yeah.
Right. So the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated, and the platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated. Right. Which is that idea around having the recognition that, hey, I did this, the impact that happened. This is all about you at the moment, not about me, because you just got smacked in the face with a Frisbee, right? I have to address that elephant in the room before I say, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. It's like, hey, who cares, man? You just like, I'm in pain right now.
Yeah.
It's not, don't make this about you, make this about me, right? So I love that idea, because I think conscious capitalism teaches us that we need to meet people where they're at, right? And this whole idea around integral leadership and elevation and this level 5 leadership is people having that awareness. And I love everything you're saying to me. It's just like, yeah, you're speaking my language, which is, hey, collectively, we need to stop thinking things from our own selfish perspective, because as a tribe, we ain't going to make it if that's what we keep doing. And that's that shareholder mentality is like, yeah. What's in it for me, though, and my people? And it's like, well, yeah, but just because GAAP says that's how you do accounting doesn't mean that you're counting everything that counts, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of waste that's getting created that someone else has to clean up at some point. And just because the regulation or the way we recognize expenses doesn't force you to recognize that right now, are you really a profitable business? And I think it's defining that word profit is what we need to start looking at. So like, in closing, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and then we can find out where people can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. And I think that just to even hone in a little bit more, it's all about the little things. It's the simple, like, again, going back to the intent versus impact thing that I was just talking about. Clearly, hitting somebody in the head with a Frisbee is a really physical example, but the reality of how that manifests are in tiny little word choices, a reaction that you give unintentionally when someone says something, and whatever. It's the little things that matter the most. I know that you can ask any woman that's ever been in the dating world, and they'll tell you it's the little things that matter. It's not the grand gestures, and it's the same way in the way we treat our employees, the way that we interact with our entire ecosystem of vendors and community and clients, et cetera. All of the stakeholders involved in any organizations. It's about the little things.
I love it, man. You know who else said that? It's what's his face from Starbucks, the CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz.
Yeah, Howard Schultz.
Yeah, they asked him, well, what is it, Howie? What is it that makes Starbucks? Is it the smell of the coffee or the music or the Italian lounge? He's like, no, it's 1,000 little things. It all adds up. I love that we're ending on that note. So, Jay, number one, man, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have you here today, dude.
Thank you. Fun. I am so grateful for you and the work you do. Your show is one of the best. I love watching it. So much energy and always great insight.
I'm just trying to do my best. I appreciate that so much. I'd love for you to just let everyone know where they can find you, and then we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, you can find me at domoregood.com is the website where you can learn more about the Do More Good movement and the conference. And I'm on Twitter at Jay Wilk, JAYWILK, and I'd love to connect with you there. And I'd love to follow back and respond and connect with everyone.
Awesome. Guys, we're going to put those in the comments, so you can go find Jay at domoregood.com, and as well as his Twitter handle. We'll get that up there so that everyone can find you, connect with you, and really do more good themselves. I think the more good we do collectively, the more good it's going to happen universally. So I love so much that you're doing that work, and like I said, I appreciate you very much. Guys, with that said, man, what a great week we had. We had 2 killer rock stars on the show. And Jay just rounded out the week with dropping some knowledge on how we can all do more good. And man, I don't know about you, but I'm pumped. That said, guys, next week we got some more fun, some more hijinks. Do me a favor, go to therealdarius.com, subscribe to the show, get on the email list. No spamming, only positive, only value. And if you want, support the show. Go to YouTube, sign up, subscribe. You'll get updates when we do our next show, because right now we're about ready to convert this bad boy into a podcast. It's going live on the 11th of February. So you can find me on all social. Go to The Real Darius. And with that said, you all have a great week. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Peace. We're out of here.
Out.